Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I have another true crime video to do. I'm sure a lot of people are going to have very strong opinions about this case if they've heard of it, and it is about the Darlie Routier murders. I've heard her name said Darlie Routier and Darlie Routier, but I'm pretty sure it's Routier, so that's what I'm going to go by. And I just want to say that I'm not saying that she's beyond... I'm not saying she's 100% innocent in this, but I do think that she deserves to have certain details of her case brought to light. So she is currently on death row right now, and I think it's been about 20 or 21 years that she's been on death row. She is obviously going to be put to death by lethal injection, and a lot of people are trying to prove her innocence. So I'm just going to go over the case, and I'd love to hear what you guys think. And if you decide that you want to support Darlie, there is a petition going around where you can sign and help her have a chance at a new trial. Also, if there's any evidence or information that I've got incorrect, just please correct me in the comments below so that everybody who sees this can be informed of that. So I did my best to find information from reputable sources. However, there is so much false information out there. It's really hard to sift through and know what's right and what's wrong. So these are the facts that I found to be the most factual. Okay, so Darlie and Deorr Routier were married August 1988, and they were basically high school sweethearts. They got married when they were very young. I believe Darlie was 18 and Deorr was 20. So in 1989, they had their first boy, and his name was Devin. In 1991, they had their second boy, and his name was Damon. And in 1995, they had their third son, and his name was Drake. So there's Darren, Darlie, Devin, Damon, and Drake. The morning of June 6, 1996, in a community called Rowlett, Texas. It's just right outside of Dallas, Texas, I believe. Darlie Routier called 911, and she was in absolute hysterics, and she was claiming that an intruder had broken into her home, stabbed her two sons, Devin and Damon, and that the intruder had also stabbed her and attacked her as well. So I guess Darren was home at the time, and he was sleeping upstairs with their infant Drake, who was 7 months old at the time. So paramedics came, and as did police, within about 3 minutes of the 911 call. Obviously, the police officers arrived first, and the first officer on the scene was basically sick to his stomach of when he walked in and saw what was going on, which he kind of tried to hide that fact. So he didn't really participate in trying to save the child's life at that time, and he was kind of just, taking in everything that was going on, but not really doing anything. So clearly it was a really horrific crime scene. Darlie was in shock. Darren was in shock. This police officer was in shock. So when you're in shock, you don't necessarily make the right decisions or, say the right things. So something to keep in mind. In all the chaos that was going on, Darren didn't even realize that Darlie had been stabbed a bunch of times and her throat was slashed. And I don't think Darlie even realized that at the time. It took her a while to kind of figure out what was going on. She was, in shock. Was pronounced dead on the scene. Damon, he had been stabbed, but he had gotten up and was trying to shake his mom and, tell her what had happened, that he was stabbed. He had been stabbed in the lung, so he was having a hard time breathing, but he was clearly alive. So when Darlie called 911, Darren was trying to do CPR on Damon and save him. Basically, Darlie was bleeding profusely, and her throat had been slashed so deep and almost cut a main artery. She was wearing a necklace, and the necklace was basically embedded into her neck, and it more or less saved her life, because if she would have been stabbed 2 millimeters more, she would have been dead. So the police saw this, and they claimed that her wounds were self-inflicted. Right away, they suspected it was Darlie. So Darlie was treated at the hospital. She was rushed into emergency surgery. She wasn't allowed to talk to anyone. She was completely sedated and out of it. And then a couple days later, she was released. After that, a few weeks later, she was charged for the murder of Devin and Damon. Devin was 6 years old at the time, and Damon was 5 years old. She only ended up being tried and convicted for the murder of Damon, however. Some say because in Texas, if you murder somebody under the age of 6 years old, it's a capital murder. So some say that they wanted to make sure to get a murder conviction. So if they couldn't get the conviction on the first child, that they would try for the second child. So she was charged with Devin, but never tried. So she is now currently one of 55 women on death row, and she maintains her innocence. The state of Texas has offered to reduce her sentence to life without parole if she would admit to guilt, and she wouldn't take the offer. She 100% says she's innocent. So Darlie's husband, friends, and supporters say authorities had tunnel vision right from the get-go. They said that the police investigation was sloppy. There were so many errors, inconsistencies, unprofessionalism. Evidence was ignored, and they contradicted theories. I'm going to kind of be jumping all over the place because I don't want to say the case one way and then have you guys make up your mind about who did it and then start telling you guys other conflicting evidence. So I'm going to kind of do it at the same time. So basically what happened that night is Darlie said her husband and the baby were upstairs sleeping. She'd been having a hard time sleeping through the night because the baby kept waking her up. So the two young boys decided they wanted to have a movie night and sleep downstairs on the couch. So she decided that she would stay with them. And so she made popcorn, put on movies, and then she fell asleep on the couch with the boys. At the time of being questioned, she was obviously in shock and very confused. So she had conflicting statements. At one point, she said that it was Damon who had shook her and woke her up. And then another time she said that she had woke up to the attacker or the intruder basically fighting with her, and she fought him off and he took off. An expert for the defense had said that Darlie was probably in and out of consciousness, so that's why she wasn't quite sure what was going on. When she woke up, she had no idea that she even had injuries. So, I mean, it's really hard to say. But like I said, there was inconsistencies with her story. There's inconsistencies with the evidence. Evidence was not handled properly. When police were looking into this, it was a small town, so they were not used to handling a crime scene like this. It wasn't taped off at first. At least 15 people came in and trampled all the evidence. There was crushed glass all over the place. The blood evidence was disturbed. Darlie's t-shirt was cut off her when it was still had wet blood on it, and it wasn't folded or anything. It was scrunched up and put into just a random paper bag. So that contaminated some of the evidence because the boys' clothes had also been thrown in with hers. So the police had found a screen, like a screen in the window had been sliced in like a T shape, and they claimed that the intruder came in through that window, which was in the garage. While they got in the garage, they then entered the home through the like pantry utility area, and then they'd gotten in that way. So when they were trying to figure out what was going on and look around for clues on how this intruder possibly got in and out, they had taken one of the knives from the kitchen and took it to compare it to the screen. They claimed that there was debris found on the knife that was consistent with the debris from the screen material. However, there was also hairs found in the screen, and when they were tested, they were found to be from a police officer. So it was shoddy investigation. Also, the big butcher's knife that was at the scene was one of the murder weapons. Police only said that there was one murder weapon and that it was that knife. And when Darlie had been chasing after the attacker, she had picked up the knife that was on the counter. So they claimed that Darlie lied and her fingerprints would have been on the knife anyways. So that's why she did that. The police failed to say that only Damon and Darlie's blood was found on that knife. So there would have had to have been a second knife. And that second knife that killed Devin was never found, but they didn't release that information. Also, 75 yards from the crime scene, they found a sock, and the sock had DNA from Darlie, from like her saliva on this random sock. And there was blood from both of the boys, just little blood droplets from both of the boys on this sock. And what it looked like is that somebody that had been fleeing the scene tried to throw the sock down a gutter, like a rain gutter, but had missed. But the police claimed that Darlie put that sock there to kind of try and stage the crime scene. However, something that also didn't make any sense is from Damon's injuries, it was proven that he would only have, from the moment that he'd been stabbed, he'd had 8 minutes to live. That's it. So because there was blood from both of the boys on this sock, the clock starts ticking. And she had such a bad slash in her throat. There's no way that she could have, left and planted this sock without dripping blood everywhere or getting it on the sock. But even if she had, pretended to stab herself and slash her own throat, that Damon only had 8 minutes to live. So when she called 911, that was 6 minutes, and then the police arrived, and within 2 minutes he had passed away. So there's the 8 minutes. So it's absolutely impossible, even from the police's timeline, but they still wouldn't admit that there's no way that she could do it. So they claimed that, she was planting evidence to set the stage for this, perfect murder. The police had also said at the time they analyzed all the fingerprints, and that all of them were, all the bloody fingerprints were from Darlie and Damon. So there was absolutely no way any intruder was present. However, it was later found that there was at least 3 bloody fingerprints that didn't match anybody in the household, but those fingerprints were never tested, and so that leaves speculation that there really was an intruder. Also, the biggest damning piece of evidence was Devin was just about to turn 7 years old, and that was a really big deal. Darlie went all out. She was that mom that, went all out on the birthday parties, and so she'd already sent out invitations for his birthday. It was a really big deal. He couldn't wait to turn 7. So 8 days after the incident went down, I don't know if it was 8 days after Darlie was released from the hospital or if it was 8 days after the crime took place, but within 8 days, the police illegally bugged the boy's grave. And so the most damning piece of evidence that was shown in court was from the police and news reporters. And what had happened was the family had all gathered to have a memorial for the kids, and they'd been crying and, showing emotion and all that stuff. And then a few minutes later, they kind of got themselves together, and then they decided it was time to celebrate Devin's birthday because that's what he would have wanted. So the footage that was shown to jurors was Darlie, chewing gum, smacking her gum. She had fresh blonde hair, just, got it dyed. She was laughing and spraying silly string all over the gravestone. It didn't look like she was a grieving mother, and that was what made everybody believe that she was guilty. So they only showed that part of the clip. They didn't show the part where, she was upset and grieving and all that stuff. So because the police illegally bugged the gravestone, when they were questioned in court about it, they pleaded the 5th so that they didn't get themselves in trouble and that evidence still could be used. One of the jurors said they played that clip 9 times, and one of the jurors said if he would have saw the full video, that he would have never, that would have changed his mind on the situation. He would have never convicted Darlie.
So the sad Darlie was never seen by the jury, and the bad Darlie got big play.
He wanted to be 7. I did the only thing I knew to do to honor him and give him those wishes because he wasn't here anymore.
So another thing that was never told is that it was Darlie's sister that purchased the silly string, and I'm pretty sure there was those party poppers. So I guess that Darlie and her husband were going to renew their vows, but before they did that, they wanted to celebrate Devin's birthday. So Devin and Damon had suggested the boys, instead of throwing rice, the boys wanted to have silly string because it was their favorite thing in the world. So it was Darlie's sister that went and picked up the silly string. Darlie was just basically trying to honor her sons. It's also important to note that one of the investigators, experts, had said that the blood spatter on Darlie's nightgown was consistent with blood spatter from, stabbing and murdering the boys. That part of evidence has been disputed and is misleading because that particular investigator, over the last 20 years, he's been linked to at least 3 wrongful convictions, and it's all based on circumstantial evidence. So these are a few questions that the defense had that they wanted answered, and that basically it kind of showed Darlie's innocence. So there was a bloody fingerprint that was found on the living room table, but it did not belong to anybody. That they tested the police, the first responders, the paramedics, everybody, and it didn't belong to any of them. There was 2 bloody fingerprints on the door to the garage in the utility room. Fingerprints didn't come from Darlie or Damon. They suspect that maybe one of the fingerprints came from Darren, which, kind of points the finger towards him. Also, Darren had blood on his jeans, but they never tested whose blood that it was. And it was blood splatter. It wasn't, when he was trying to revive the boy, that there was just blood got on him. There was a pubic hair found in the living room, but they couldn't say that who it came from. There was additional blood on Darlie's nightgown that didn't match either of the boys or herself. And then the debris on the knife that came from the Routier's house, they claim it came from the Routier kitchen and that it was used on the screen door. But at the same time, they had also claimed that the screen was cut from the inside from somebody in the house. However, it was later said that that was not true. Police also said that underneath the entry point through the window, that there was mulch and the mulch had been trampled. However, there was no mulch there. There was cement. So that was another misleading fact. Neighbors also reported seeing a black car sitting in front of the Routier's house the night of the murders, and that they had seen that same car patrolling their neighborhood for a couple of weeks and driving really slow. When police were told about this, they never followed up and never investigated it. And it's said that one of the main investigators in the case, his son had a black car, and his son was found guilty on a drive-by in the black car. So some people say that he was trying to, take the attention off his own son as possibly being a suspect. But because the police didn't investigate further, we don't know if it's the exact same car that his son had. So it was also stated that on March 22nd, 1996, an intruder had went to a home and slashed a bunch of the screens until they finally found a window that was unlocked. And the window happened to be just above the sink. So the man got in, slithered into the home, and went into the bedroom where the couple was sleeping. And this home is only 5 minutes away from where Darlie's home is. And the couple was sleeping and their wallet was stolen just a few inches away from their head. So they never woke up. And what they had said was, obviously we didn't wake up, or we would both be dead, or worse, one of us might be in Darlie's place on death row. That intruder also rifled through the kitchen drawers, and the intruder was trying to find a knife to use on the couple in case that they did wake up, which is basically the same thing that happened to the Routiers. So, not saying that Darren Routier is guilty of anything, but something that also happened was Darren was caught and then later admitted that he was trying to arrange an insurance scam, which included somebody breaking into his home, stealing their stuff, and it was supposed to be done when nobody was home. So he kind of put the word out to known criminals in the area. And so some people said that maybe one of the criminals was trying to do that in order to cash in on the money that was being offered for this. So when Darlie caught wind of this, she was already in jail, and she says that she loves her husband and believes he's innocent and believes that he had nothing to do with the murders. However, when she was told about this, she said that if she was ever released, that she would not be back with her husband because that bothers her to the point of making her believe that that was possibly the cause of this murder. Defense had hired an investigator to like look into this case, and Darlie was right-handed and her throat was slashed on the right side. So she would have basically had to stab herself in the one arm and then switch hands and stab herself a couple times in the other arm and then slash her throat with her non-dominant hand. And most people would not do that. The police tried to say that Darlie was suicidal and that's why she did this. It was found in her diary that she was talking about she was depressed and wanted to commit suicide. However, she said that, you know, she had that feeling but would never go through it. And if she was going to, she wouldn't take her kids with her. And really, why would you kill 2 kids and not all 3? The prosecution also said that Darlie was in financial distress, as was her husband. She was the spoiled brat that was used to living this extravagant lifestyle, and her kids were getting in the way of it, which is what they believe the motive for the crime was. However, there was no way that she could profit off the murder of her children. She would profit off killing her husband, and vice versa. Another thing to be noted, that if the family was in financial ruins, the emergency surgery that Darlie needed when she apparently slashed her own throat was over $12,000. So if you're going to slash your throat, you know that you're either going to die or that you're going to have expensive surgery. There's no way you can lightly but deeply slash your throat and not have financial hardships after. It doesn't really make any sense. And 2 other things that I have to mention is, at the time of the investigation, the defense was only given 400 photographs of the crime scene from the police, but there was over 1,000 taken. So when the other 600 had been given and released, the defense then found all this evidence that they could have used to show that Darlie was innocent. There was a woman that was named Barbara Davis, I believe, and she made a book basically about Darlie. I think it's called Precious Angels. And she made this book about how Darlie was this horrible woman that killed her children. Barbara was present every day in court, knew all the evidence that was present at court, and she admits to saying she 100% wanted like anyone who read the book to have no doubt that Darlie did it. She wanted to paint Darlie in this horrible light so that everybody hated Darlie and believed she was guilty. When all this evidence came out and the book was published, a couple days later, Barbara went and looked at all the evidence, and now she says she got it wrong. Seeing all this evidence, she believes that she had a hand in making Darlie look guilty. She said that her book would be a huge reason why people would point the finger at Darlie. So all the proceeds that come from the book, she gives to the family to help with Darlie's legal defense. And lawyer fees and DNA testing, everything like that. So she is a huge supporter in getting Darlie released from death row. So, I don't know. It's a crazy case. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what to believe. I just think that her side of the story should be told, because I thought she was guilty until I started looking into all this stuff. So there's a petition that you can sign if you believe that she's innocent, and it will help her have a chance at a new trial possibly. Yeah, I'd love to hear what you guys think. I know people are going to have really strong opinions of this. I know there's evidence I probably left out. There's probably evidence that you guys may have heard that is not truthful. So just be respectful in the comments, and yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please give it a like if you did, and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one.